Hi everybody, my name is Michelle and you are visiting Big Valley Living. I've been going through my cancer story with everybody. What we're going to talk about tonight are the short-term side effects that I've had throughout my 4 different chemotherapy treatment sessions. I'm going to be direct and to the point. If you want to hear more about it or anything like that, leave me a comment down below and I can expand on any one or more of the topics that you'd like to hear. So the first time I had chemotherapy, it was a pill form. The pill is called Xeloda, or capecitabine is the name of the generic form. So my first round began in January of 2018, and I was able to work full-time, and I have a desk job for probably about 4 months, and then it started to gather steam, and it became very difficult for me to even stay awake, and it was very, very difficult to sit at a desk for 8 to 9 hours a day. Even getting up and moving around, it really didn't help matters. So in my first round, I took 5 pills twice a day of capecitabine. And so that was 2,500 milligrams every 12 hours. You have to eat food when you take these pills. And so I had to kind of make sure that I kept myself on about every 12-hour schedule to eat and take the medication. I'm not a breakfast person, admittedly, so that was my first challenge. But my short-term side effects that ended, they crept up, and then they peaked at the end, and then they backed off, and within about 2 or 3 weeks, I was relatively back to normal. So that is the message I want to get across to everybody with the short-term side effects that I'm going to talk to you about today. I will talk about long-term side effects in the next video because those will be with me forever unless I, can find a miracle treatment. So, on the short-term side effect side, I had nausea. It was fairly light to begin with. I don't think that it was really horrible. And I did have some medication that helped alleviate that. The other side effect I remember the most is lightheadedness. And when I say that, it wasn't like a head rush when you have low blood pressure. It was just more of an overall forgetfulness sort of feeling. And in that particular instance, when I took Xeloda the first time, probably closer to the 2-month mark into the 6-month treatment, I lost my emotions. I did get a little teary once in a while and I would cry. But the worst part was I didn't seem to have a filter, and I didn't necessarily say what I was feeling because I just didn't seem to have any kind of emotional attachment to anything. And I knew it, but no matter what I did, I just really couldn't seem to do anything about it. I was even seeing a counselor, and I didn't recognize it as much as my husband did, and also my mom. My mom really noticed it as well. I had extreme swelling in my ankles, and when I say extreme, my ankles aren't that big, okay? I mean, you can see my ankle bones and everything, and my ankles became the size of my calves. So they were just, it was like I had stumps from the knee down. My feet also were swelling, obviously, and putting regular shoes on was very painful. I also have very narrow feet, but I couldn't wear my normal shoes. It was that bad. I could press in on my ankle, I can remember, with my finger, and it would just stay there. So it was edema. My doctor did know about it, and we worked through it. Really, the resolution was to do exercises, drink plenty of water, and then also to elevate my feet as much as possible. Now remember, I tried to work as long as I could through that, and with a desk job and a couple of computer screens, and being in the office at the time, I couldn't just put my feet up at my desk. It's not professional. Ultimately, that's why I did end up taking some time off. I gained 45 pounds in the last 2 months of my treatment. That's not good. That is not good at all. I did attribute a lot of that to the water retention. I didn't eat that much either, so it was just extreme weight gain, and I guess I was glad that I wasn't withering away. I also had extreme fatigue, and when I say extreme fatigue, if I wasn't working or taking a shower and doing my hair, brushing my teeth, I was pretty much sleeping for about probably 3 months. And I do want to say that through that entire treatment, I got up every single morning, I made myself breakfast, and I'm just hoping that I can let you know that it is temporary. It's very important to know this. My fingerprints disappeared. I'm starting to get them back right now, and I really don't know if you can see, but I just recently did that same treatment, and you actually lose your fingerprints. It happened to me both times. It's really hard to hold on to things when you don't have fingerprints. Sensitivity to toothpaste, yes. So we typically use Crest or Colgate. It got to a point where it burned to put toothpaste in my mouth, and I dearly love brushing my teeth. I was told about a toothpaste, and I really want you to take this to heart if you're going through this and your teeth and your gums are sensitive. And I'm going to link to each one of the medications that I was prescribed so that you can look at the full list of potential side effects. I didn't get every side effect that you can get, but I did get many, and some of them were on the rare list and some were on the common list. My feet were very sore, especially near the end. The tops of my feet, if just a sheet touched my feet at night, it was excruciating. But that was very temporary, and if I started propping my feet with the sheet off of my feet at night, and that helped a little bit. And then eventually I would just get so tired that I would fall asleep and not feel it, because I was sleeping. That ends my first round of chemotherapy, okay? So again, that one was pills called Xeloda. The Xeloda was actually prescribed as a preventive measure because I had stage 2 cancer. In November of 2019, I developed a tumor in my right ovary. So my second round of chemotherapy started in April of 2020 and went through August of 2020. Preceding that, I did have a hysterectomy because I had a tumor in my right ovary. I know that my doctor must have said to me that I had stage 4 cancer because it had spread, but somehow my defense mechanism inside of my mind put that off to the side, and I really didn't focus on it. It affected my husband at the time more than it affected me. And again, I think it was just a complete defense mechanism on my part. So what happened now was I had to go in, and I was the very last person to have an operation in the hospital that I go to. And they installed a port. And the purpose of the port is to administer the liquid chemo cocktail, if you will. And I'm going to check my notes because I want to make sure I get all the right drugs that they administered at the time here. So it was called Folfox with Avastin, and then also oxaliplatin. I'm sorry about that, oxaliplatin. And most of my side effects with those particular drugs, the biggest one that made an impact on me was cold sensitivity. And I couldn't touch anything with my hands without it feeling, and I'm talking like, say, a glass, even an empty glass, or the handle of a refrigerator or a countertop. Everything felt like it was freezing in the middle of winter when I touched it. Another one of the very notable side effects from that was, in addition to the cold sensitivity on my hands, was the sensation of choking if I ate or drank anything that was room temperature or colder. And if you don't really think about how many things you eat that are room temperature, salad, no lettuce, no vegetables, even hot from the garden, like a nice juicy tomato in the summertime, wasn't hot enough. I couldn't drink a glass of water that had just come out of the tap. That was still too cold. So I had to warm everything up a little bit. Fortunately, I do like coffee, I do like tea, all kinds of tea. And if I wanted something kind of sweet, I would just put a little bit of honey in it. But I didn't do that very often either. I also like lemons and basil, so I was able to dress up my water and my tea a little bit. So I made do on that. But at the same time, my husband had been putting in the most beautiful garden beds ever to grow healthy food for us, and in particular for me. And my hand sensitivity was so intense that I couldn't garden. I couldn't touch the dirt unless I had cotton gloves on. One of my sisters-in-law got me 3 pairs of cotton gloves, though. It was so sweet when she found out about this. So I was able to wear my little white cotton gloves around the house, and even when I came outside from infusion, imagine it's 110 degrees outside in the middle of summer in California, and just the wind resistance of walking made my hands sensitive to the cold. So that was a very temporary thing. It ended not long after I discontinued that chemotherapy when we finished the course. And I was never so happy in my life to have a cold glass of water a few weeks after the infusion ended. My nose got very dry on the inside, so there were nosebleeds that were unexpected. There was really no warning, it would just happen. It just felt like my nose was scabbed all the time. So I didn't use any nasal sprays or anything like that, but I did blow my nose every morning, and I wasn't surprised after a while that it was just, it's like the membranes of my nose were super thin. My nose would run a little bit more than usual as well, and because of sun sensitivity, I spent a lot of time in the house. So, you know, we had the air conditioner running because it's hot outside, and I made do. My hair thinned a little bit, and at first it was falling out, not by the handfuls, but when I'd take a shower every morning, I would get like at least 20 to 30 or 40 hairs. I mean, it was enough where I had to clear the drain every morning, but I never completely lost all of it. Had I lost it, oh well. I mean, hair grows back, and I do know that. So I did play around a few times with funny wigs. And because if I did lose it, I was going to kind of have fun with it, because you got to keep a good attitude about it. You got to have some fun. I had that extreme sensitivity to toothpaste again, and that just seems to be a common side effect with all of the treatments that I've gone through. I was sun sensitive again. All these drugs make you sun sensitive, so you have to be really careful about that. You need to stay out of the sun as much as possible. And when you do go out to the sun, I made sure I had long sleeve shirts, like, you know, white long sleeve shirts, sunglasses, hats, that type of thing. And obviously I used sunscreen, like the highest rating I could find. And I just made that a part of what I do. I had, my eyes were very sensitive to light. They're blue, so they obviously are already sensitive. If you don't have blue eyes, you may not know that, but our eyes tend to get a lot more sensitive than people with darker eyes. I had a lack of concentration again, and was, you know, kind of loopy, if you will. That's chemo brain, right? That's chemo brain. When they talk about that, you're foggy, can't concentrate, can't focus, can't remember. I could remember everything from kindergarten, but I couldn't remember what I had had the day before for dinner. Extreme fatigue. Another thing about infusion was that I would go in from 8 in the morning-ish, and I would be in there for about 4 hours, and they would administer the chemotherapy. But when we were finished, I actually went home, connected through my port, and with a like a purse, which was like a sling that had more chemotherapy in it, and that was the Folfox. And it would drip for about 2 days, and it started out about the size of an apple, and then I'm gonna overlay a picture. And then as it infused, it would just get a little bit smaller and smaller until it looked like the core of an apple with plastic around it. When that would be done, I would go out to the infusion center and they would, disconnect it, and then I would go home until the next treatment session. So that was a little disconcerting at first. I wasn't sure how I would sleep, and because I've got this thing connected to my chest, and it was a little bit scary at first. But then I actually got used to it. I found a way to hang the little purse thing up and over the bed. I slept on one side of my body, and I got used to it actually, and I got used to it sooner than I thought I would. So if you do go through that, keep in mind that at least you get to go home and have your normal life for the most part, instead of going into the hospital for 2 or 3 days like they did just, I think, like 20 years ago. You had to be in the hospital the whole time. So I was very thankful, and the nursing staff was really supportive, and they were able to give me tips and tricks from other patients and everything, and I just really appreciated that. That took a lot out of me. I was extremely emotional on that one. I felt unappreciated for the things I was doing around the house. Although, here's my husband out there building these beautiful garden beds and everything, and helping me in the kitchen and helping me with housework. The house always looked very tidy. And then there were certain jobs that I like to do around the house that I took care of. But it's just the way you feel, and you can't sometimes help the way you feel. So I gave myself the grace to feel lonely, do whatever I needed to do to pick up, feeling a little bit better. Probably a month or two into it, experienced the loss of taste. And so I had that tarry feeling in my mouth. It feels like there are kind of like bumps or rocks on your tongue, even though there aren't. And that affects your taste buds. It's weird because you're not super hungry, but you're hungry because you're not eating. That was a very strange time. I had the foot swelling. I had the sensitivity to touch on my feet. I tried different creams and everything, and I even tried like some CBD cream, and that helped a tiny bit, but not really very much. That treatment ended in August of 2020, and the whole time that was going on, during my CT scans, there was a shadow that was very close to my spine, and that particular shadow never went away, and again, it was close to my spine. So in October of 2020, right after finishing infusion, my oncologist and I talked about what we wanted to do as far as that shadow that was near my spine, because it was suspicious. I told him that I wanted to be as aggressive as possible. I didn't want it to go somewhere. I didn't want it to enlarge. We reached out to my original surgeon, who had done a very, very good job of operating and performing a resection of my colon. And she was completely on board, and we set up a time for surgery, and it happened to be right at the 3-year mark, actually, after I had had my initial surgery. I had gone through all of the testing and everything we needed to do for COVID, and we were literally 3 days from surgery, and she called me and asked me to come in for a conference at her office. So when I went in, she told me that after looking more closely, because I guess she would look at everything and come up with a plan of action for the surgery, that she said, I'm just not comfortable performing this type of surgery. It is touching your spine, and any mishap whatsoever could permanently disable you and render you unable to walk. And that comes with a whole host of other things. It's not just your legs that get affected, it's everything, right? So I have to say that I appreciate the fact that she was not so prideful that she was just going to do it no matter what, because we had set the schedule. And I just will never forget how happy I was that she wasn't so prideful. You know, thank you so much, doctor, and you know who you are. So she referred me to a radiologist, and I went in and spoke with him, and he went through all my files. They actually had a conference between, like, I don't know, 15 or 20 different doctors about my situation. They went over my history and how things played out. The radiologist had suggested that we go ahead and try and shrink that tumor, if indeed it was a tumor, but shrink that shadowy figure that was on my spine or next to my spine by using radiation and a chemotherapy mix. So in December of 2020, months after I had finished infusion, I was back into treatment. I went through radiation for about 2.5 months. And during that time, I took the pill form of the chemotherapy again. So going through radiation, I took Xeloda again, or capecitabine. It was only for about, like I said, 2.5 months. So it wasn't the 6-month course of the capecitabine, thank goodness. Now, when I went through radiation, fatigue was a really big part of it. Nausea immediately following the radiation, and the rays were pointed down towards my pelvis. My back got really, really sore. As I found out later, you can get like hairline, little tiny hairline fractures. So it weakens your back, and my legs were pretty sore from like the knees up to my hips. And if you think about it, that's pretty much where the rays were going, so it makes sense. So for the nausea, I just took the regular medication that had been working for me. And then there's a fast-acting version of that, and I would just take that right before I went in for the radiation treatments. That staff was really nice too, and the sessions lasted a few minutes. So they let me pick my own music that made me feel good or made me happy, and they were a really neat group of people, because think about it, they're working with very, very sick people and people going through a lot. And again, another wonderful team that I will never be able to thank enough for them helping keep my spirits up and doing whatever it took. Okay. Again, the sore feet. Again, the feelings of isolation. But I was able to drive myself to and from the sessions. It's not too far from my house. The antiemetic or the anti-nausea medication that I found to be the most effective, and it's pretty much been my go-to throughout all of my treatments, has been Zofran. That's the brand name. And it's just been very effective for me, although I never had this problem until this recent time. It can make you constipated, and so I did experience that with this past round, but I didn't have a lot of nausea, and I still think it's because I did take the time off work for the first time, the entire time of treatment. Another thing, when I have been stopped up, is I drink a tea that we can buy at our local grocery stores, but I've also purchased it on Amazon and had some sent to friends that were taking pain medication after surgery, and it's called Smooth Move. It was actually recommended by one of the nurse navigators, as well as one of the people that helps my surgeon. So I found that to be very effective, and if you do find yourself constipated, it's very gentle, And I find that following the instructions, using it right before I go to bed, in the morning, everything's fine in a very gentle way. I really don't like to use laxatives or over-the-counter medicines like that if I can have some tea that will do it. Extreme thing with the radiation was diarrhea, and it did go away. It was, I'm going to call it temporary, but that side effect took about 5 months to dissipate. It came on suddenly. I didn't even have to eat sometimes. It was just there. And I would go and go and go. And my doctor did prescribe a special medication to use. And I didn't need it at first, so I wasn't getting it refilled. Well, as it turns out, I should have had a refill or two in my back pocket and kept it in the safe or something. Because when I really, really needed it, I found out that it was a controlled substance. And the insurance would only refill it every so many days. And when you need that kind of medication, you really need it. So if you do go through radiation and you do, and they tell you that diarrhea is going to be one of your side effects, even if you're not using your prescription at first, get a bottle and have it, and then maybe a month later or whatever you need to do, get the second bottle. My prescription was only good for a certain amount of time. It wasn't a full year. And of course, as it always happens, when did it all take place? Like on a Friday afternoon before a holiday. I was able to mitigate that problem, if you will, but don't put yourself in that position. I hope that that's helpful for somebody, because I just couldn't do anything. I just couldn't do anything. I was rendered completely helpless until I got that resolved. It was only a day, so it was totally okay. I think that that's really kind of it. I didn't have any burning on my skin or anything like that from my radiation. I'm still recovering, and I'm kind of conditioning myself to eat vegetables again. But I'm going to be doing that, because with colorectal cancer, meat is not my best friend. I am moving towards a very plant-forward diet. Eventually, I want to be 100% whole food plant-based until my side effects are completely under control from taking chemotherapy. I'm going to do what I need to do to nourish my body. Meat is not a big part of my diet at this point, but I am still eating a little bit of cheese and a little bit of butter. And when I need to have a cracker to settle my stomach, I'm allowing myself that. But I am moving towards flaxseed crackers and hummus and stuff like that, which I very much enjoy. All right, so last round. I took Xeloda again. I had surgery in January of this past year, and then I was prescribed a preventive treatment of Xeloda again, capecitabine. I started taking it on President's Day, and I ended in mid-August. I did stop a week early because my body was telling me that I needed to call the doctor, and he agreed. He said, "You're 1 week away from being a complete 6 months into this." I had all of the same side effects, so I'm just going to go over them very quickly and let you know that my fingerprints did go away as usual. My ankles, because I took time off, were not as swollen as they were the first time. There's a little bit, but nothing like the last time. I was able to get up and move around and do things, and I really attribute a lot of that to being not having to sit at a desk all day to do the job that I have. And standing up, I know they have sit-stand desks. You're still standing in one place when your job is to review documents and have meetings. Diarrhea, I think that's just going to be a part of my life. It should get a little bit better, but it does take a month or two to dissipate. So, there's still that going on. I don't like eating breakfast, and during one of the treatments, one of my long-term side effects is I got diabetes. So there again is one of the reasons I'm going to look at plant-based diet. I want to reverse my diabetes and keep the cancer away. There have been occasional feelings of isolation and loneliness, and I'm going to ask that if you're a friend or a family member of somebody with cancer and you're not comfortable seeing them, and there can be a million reasons. You could have a bad memory of a family member that you lost. You could be just uncomfortable around things like that, okay? I understand. But don't commit yourself to seeing them. Just let them know that you're not available, okay? Or you're welcome to call me or whatever it is. But if you're not comfortable going and seeing them, or you don't have the time to help, just don't make the commitment. Because when you cancel 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 times, it can be tough on that person, okay? It's okay to be human and not have to feel obligated. It's okay. I had the confusion, of course. I still have a little chemo brain left over, so things take me a little longer. But I do know that I feel mentally stronger every single day. I mean, I literally wake up every morning feeling like I'm, clearer of mind. So, thank goodness for that. The fatigue is starting to go away. I have a lot more energy. I had occasional nausea this time, but it really wasn't that horrible. I'm about 1 month out from having my latest round of Xeloda, and for the first time of using Xeloda, I got the tarry taste in my mouth and lost my sense of taste. It was literally in the middle of a bite of spaghetti, homemade spaghetti sauce. It was very odd. So it's still here. I don't know at this point if it's going to be a long-term effect or if it's just taking longer for my mouth to recover. One of the side effects that you can expect from capecitabine, and I'm not sure if it's the infusion, is what they call hand, foot, and mouth disease. And so you have to make sure that you keep a lot of moisturizer on your hands and your feet. I actually have to do that twice a day for my feet, which is good because it means I inspect for any sores or anything because I have the diabetes to deal with. But I do find that I put the cream on my feet, I put socks on, and I put shoes on. I do not walk around in stocking feet because that dries my feet out because I have a slight drag on one of my feet, and so it just it dries it out with the sock rubbing against it. I can't wear sandals anymore. I can't wear flip-flops. I never liked flip-flops anyway, no great loss. But that's it. And again, I did have the sensitivity to the toothpaste. And again, I use the biotin. So I just kind of keep that on hand in case I need it. So right now I have a full tube. I do hope that this is helpful for you if you're going through chemotherapy and any of the actual treatments that I've gone through. If you want me to break any of them down and kind of go step by step, I think I can do that. But my whole point here is to just kind of let you know what the temporary side effects were and to reassure you that most of these are going to go away. Just keep in mind that this is a snapshot in your life. The treatment is worth going through, and that you can do it. Keep a positive attitude. Keep God and gladness in your heart. You can do this. I know you can do this, because if I can do it, anybody can do it. Believe me. All right, take care of yourself. I will see you all in the next video where we talk about the long-term side effects and how I like to manage those. Have a great day. See you later, everybody, and be kind.